everyone, welcome back to Drawn by Annie channel. This is me, Annie, and I will be drawing for you today. Grab your tea, coffee and snacks and let's dive into today's video. So what's good, what's bad, what's been happening, what's been planned to happen? Tell me everything. Tell me all the news you have. I found a few songs that I missed from the band that I used to listen a lot previously, but then I just kind of forgot about them. But then I decided to check out their channel again and I found a few songs that just stuck in my head now, and even now I'm kind of singing it in my head. I cannot stop because it's just so catchy and I've been enjoying this song while drawing and doing all the home chores, and yeah, this has been like a hymn of my productivity for these past days. Oh, and also on one of my evening walks, I actually saw a hedgehog and he was so cute. Somebody left like a cat food outside and he was eating that, and I was just walking by and I saw him eating and he was so cute. I love hedgehogs. I love all animals. He was like super adorable. And I was looking for my cat who was walking outside, so, and the other one was walking with me, so sometimes both of my cats are walking, but usually most stays at home because he's more fluffy and the weather is too hot for him, so he just comes out, chills for like a minute or two and then comes immediately in. But Sparrow, this guy is like an endless adventurer. Like, just give him an opportunity and he will run away, explore the community, fight with other cats. Especially when we just moved in, he was so funny. Like, he was fighting back for the territory, and now he just chills with every cat that he sees, like, mostly. And I saw him the other day also chilling with the stray cat that I've been feeding occasionally when I saw him. So my cats sometimes have more social life than I do. But anyway, I will be finishing today the style experimentation and style sketching from the previous video. So today's work is going to be lining out and coloring all the styles and sketches and seeing how the particular color placing order can affect the overall look, like different shading techniques. Maybe, you know, I will just try a little bit different techniques here and there and see how it will affect the outcome. So if you want to see the first part where I am just figuring out the different styles and like different proportions and everything, it's in my previous video, so go check that out. I accidentally forgot to turn on the camera when I was doing the first two ones, so don't mind me, they're a little bit started already, but literally all I do is just land some line art on top of the sketch, and I'm doing this for all of the portraits and all of the versions, and then I'm going to do the coloring with my alcohol-based markers. And since this sketchbook has a very thin paper that I mentioned so many times before, I will use something to protect the page beneath it, and I have like this nice thingy that you can put under whatever paper you're using and it will prevent the bleeding. So yeah, when I'm done with the line art, I'm removing the sketchy parts with my razor and just going right in with my alcohol-based markers. So for the first portrait, I am starting with shading her hair, which is not super colorful, it's titanium white basically, but after I'm done with this little shading, I'm going in with my skin color marker and making like a base color of a skin color, and then after that I'm making blush and shading with purple and pink colors. I'm marking the lips, the rest of the facial details to add more volume to the face, because if you don't put any shades or any other colors than base skin color, the face will look bland and like not very much alive. So I like to use different shades for the skin. I'm putting a little bit of pink here and there under the nose, on the lips, on the cheek, and even on the points of her ears. I've noticed a lot of digital artists that make anime art or character art, they do put blush on specific parts of the face, so I'm just kind of following the same principle, and I really like how it looks in the end because it adds this little accent, I guess. And after I'm done with the skin, I'm going to put colors in the eyes, and I'm going to make it a little bit gradient. So on top of the pupil it will be a bit darker color, and at the bottom of the pupil is going to be a little lighter, but I'm going to make it like a gray color. And I'm using the same colors for the hair and eyes. And after I'm done with the eyes, I'm putting more shadows on her hairs to make it look more contrast, and also coloring the ribbon and the hair accessory. And also I'm always putting white dots on her pupils, or like any character's eyes pupils, because without them their eyes look like they have seen like the worst things in the world. I don't know why, but whenever I see a character without any blicks or like highlights on their eyes, they just look so sad, and their eyes look empty for some reason. Maybe I watch too much anime and I cannot unsee this. And usually after landing the colors, I can come back to the line art and fix it a little bit if I see some bleeding through. For example, if I see like a little patch of alcohol-based marker behind the line art where it's not supposed to be. So I'm making the line art slightly thicker to cover this bleeding, and it usually helps, and it kind of became a part of my style. So for the next portrait, under number 3, I skipped number 2 because I wanted to go from up to down, and then I'm going to finish the number 2 afterwards. So for this one, I wanted to try out the different coloring techniques. So firstly, I'm putting the blushes and shading before actually landing the base skin colors. So I'm putting the pink blushes and a little bit on the shades, and then on top of that I'm putting the purple shadows with the pastel purple color. Form is basically the same, and I'm putting shadows in the same places, like behind the hairs, on her bangs, and also under her chin. And then after I'm finished with that, I'm putting the base skin color and see how much more smoother the color becomes. Like the shadows are not as rough, they're still there, they're visible, but they're much softer than the first option, because when you're putting something darker on top of the base color, you will see a much more contrast shadow, and that's what I learned from this technique. The thing is, if you want your shadows to be looking very soft, you can do that, but also then add like some extra shading on the more contrast spots. For example, under the chin you could go another layer with purple, and then the shadow will look much more dark there. But here I decided to keep it as is, so I can refer to that technique later and see how much softer the look will actually be. And as I have mentioned before in the previous video, I will use the same color palette. So it's absolutely the same markers that I'm using for all of the portraits. The only difference is how I'm putting the colors, like order, and also a few more layers or a few less layers. So basically I'm just using the same colors and seeing how combination of different applications can affect the look. And again, for the hair, I'm going from dark to lighter colors. So I'm firstly putting the most darkest shadow under her hairs and on her bangs, and then I'm working on my color, like shadow softness with lighter colors, and I'm smoothing out the edges of the shadow to make the shade look slightly smoother and keep the more contrast look where I think it needs to be more rough. For the ribbon coloring, I'm not changing much. I'm just basically putting the base color and the details the same way as the first one. And I don't think I will change it on the third portrait either, because it's not really changed throughout the styles, like they're still the same thing. On the third portrait, but under number 2, so the one in the middle, I decided I would try and practice another time the underpainting technique, the one that starts with blush and shadow before the base color. So I decided to go on and try to do that, but since it's like a completely different proportioned face, I wanted to see how much different would the shading and blushing process be. And for this one, I decided to put blush only on the let's say anatomically accurate place, because I like to put blush on the characters like that's literally forming a line in the middle of the face and that's going through the nose bridge and in like a one straight line. But for this one, I decided that I would just put 2 blobs under her eyes as if I would put like a makeup blush, you know. After that, I decided to put the base color of a skin and then go over the shades with pink color marker instead of a purple to make the shadow look a little bit more soft and give the skin like a pinkish look. And then I proceeded to do the hair and eyes and also ribbon accessory the same way that I did before, without much changes other than adding more contrast stripes with darker gray color on her hair and maybe slightly more contrast on her pupils, but the rest of the process is pretty much the same. As soon as I'm done with coloring, I decide to put more line weight to the drawing because it looks a little bit thin to me, so I decided to go back and redo the line work completely. So I'm just like doing the double work here, I guess, but I'm going back with my fine liner and doing the line weight in a calligraphic style, like as if I was doing the line art with brush pen, but I'm just mimicking the same strokes with my normal fine liner without the brush pen tip. I've been admiring this technique for so long, like it has become like a part of my style that I use all the time, and especially for the hairs and hair tips, I like to do this line weight style because it adds to the fluffiness of the hair, and I think it would also look great on any animal or anything that looks fluffy or maybe feathery. And if I would have like a design with a lot of feathers or fur in the outfit, I would totally use this technique like all the time. So I recommend you try it out. For the 4th portrait, I totally went onto the underpainting mood, so I decided to proceed with the same technique. But again, since the proportions of the face are a little bit different and shapes of the eyes are also a little bit different, I went on with my pink and purples before landing the skin color base color. I did a little bit more exaggerated shading around the eyes to make her eyes look a little bit puffier, I guess. And again, like in the previous attempts, the base color of the skin is smoothing out the shadows and blush, so it looks much more soft. And for some reason, this is also not as much contrast as the number 3, for example. And I'm not sure why, because I didn't change anything. Like I literally used the same colors of the markers and the same way of application, but number 4 seems less contrast than number 3 or number 2. But I guess sometimes markers just act like that a little bit. So I just proceed on working on the drawing, and I'm adding colors to the hair, to the eyes, and after that I see that I want her lips to be more colorful, so I'm just adding a little bit more pink on the lips, finishing up with a little bit of line weight to the line art again, but this time I'm using slightly messier techniques. So I'm just, usually when I do line work, I want it to look as clean as possible, but for this one I wanted to look a little messy, so I just kept a little bit of strokes for the extra messiness, or like just tiny bit more messy. Like I'm adding these little lines on the hair, even though they're not completely necessary, but they're adding a little bit of detailing on the hair, so it looks a little bit more stylized, I guess. And on this particular attempt, I wanted her eyes to be looking extra big, so I added more weight to the lines on her lashes, so her eyes look very much popping out because of these black lines and like, yeah, after extra fluffy lashes as if she was wearing like an extra makeup, you know. And for the last portrait coloring, I wanted to see how I can combine those techniques together. So firstly, I'm starting off with some underpainting for the blush and the shadows around her ears. Then I'm going in with my base color for the skin color. And then I decided I would try to put even more shadows in the same area to make it look more contrast and see how much the shading will change the look of the face. For the hair, I wanted to add more darker colors as well, so I proceeded with lighter shading first. I marked down where would be the shadow areas, and then I added more coloring with darker hues on the tips and around her ears and where the shadows belong, or where I think they belong. And as soon as I'm done with that, I add some highlights, and also I'm going to edit the line art a little bit. So I'm adding the line weight back, and I'm going back with my fine liner to make the strokes look a little thicker, so that way it looks more complete to me. And just a little bit of extra detailing around her eyes and more details on her nose. I think this is the most detailed nose that I have ever drawn on a character face, because I usually don't point out the nostrils that much. I usually do the inner part of the nostril but not outside. But for this one I decided to try to give this a little bit more defined look for the nostrils. But I think this look doesn't fit the character as much, but it could work for somebody more masculine, I guess. Or if your general art style is more semi-realistic or more detailed. But I think that I will use it only situationally if I need a character that looks more like edgy and rough in the face. So yeah, for Sylvia, I don't think I'm gonna choose that. You can go ahead and let me know in the comments which one you like the most. I've placed the numbers next to each portrait, so go ahead and comment that favorite number of yours down below. I'm very curious to see which one will win. My personal favorite is number 3. And that would be it for today's video. I thank you very much for watching and for sticking up with me for my little art experimentation here. If you like my work, subscribe on this channel and check out other videos on my channel. I have a bunch of them for you. And I hope I will see you in the next one. Bye!